welcome to Flat Earth Debate, Uncut and After Show. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they premiere, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon, crypto and thanks button in the info box below this video. Speaking of Patrons, I'm going to do a quick shout out to all of you who do support me on Patreon, so a massive shout out of thanks and appreciation to Otto Skylark, Phoenix Rising 86, Retro Bill, More Books, Cannabear, Fibre Oats, Bogey, Michael Kahn, Rob H, Ben White, John Kays, Patrick Gunnels, Banter, Will Brax, Mel B Styles, Troy Shuker, Hairy Blade, Mobile Mac 777, Neo the One, Rob W, Open Minded, Reese Pound, Del West Watson, Maria Neelands, Unbelievable Productions, Blue Ridge Ranger, The Real Gabster, Liam Nedrick Jr., Abraham Mohammed, Adrian Quintana, Skeptic 936, Life is Short, Texas Mike, and David Wayne Foster. So another massive thank you to all of you for supporting me on Patreon. Now I will hand over to whoever is in Discord and Google so you can enjoy their dulcet tones while I set up for today's live show.
For an argument against gravity.
Not great.
Not very good. What about hail?
Anything that's not gas, because you can show that it falls through the medium of gas at a given rate, and you're going to show how the rate varies. Well, what about showing something that just goes in the opposite direction?
Yeah, but they deny that one. They hand wave that one, whereas, where's your rate of acceleration you guys claim?
Well, up, in the case of gas.
Yeah, they like to hand wave the gas goes up.
Well, they can do that, obviously. At that point, though, what can you do? You know?
Right?
Well, that's where we get to gas go down, go boom, boom.
Yeah, and farts puddle around the feet.
Go splash, splash.
And stink, stink.
Yeah, so, if you're dealing with a fundy, what are you going to do when you get to that point? There's not a lot you can do when they're saying gas doesn't go in all directions. It only goes down. It's sphere-shaped air, atmosphere, and the laws that apply are homogeneous layers that are going to press down on the layer below. So they think gas goes down. Well, okay. Gas doesn't behave that way. That's not an agree-disagree situation.
Correct. I just like to nitpick at their argument with little trivial things like that. Like I don't see rain demonstrating this rate of acceleration. I don't see hail, which falls from who knows how many tens of thousands of feet high, accelerating to some ridiculous rate where hail would go through a car. Like hail would pulverize anything because it's accelerating at 9.8 meters per second squared. Per second, sorry.
Sure, but that rate of acceleration is something that then, if you pander to that, you'll end up arguing about it and defining terminal velocity and resistive rates through homogeneous layers of atmosphere, sphere-shaped air. Whereas that's the accelerative rate through air, something that's also in their vernacular got mass. So does the mass of the air go down? No, it doesn't. So it's back to, if you want to argue the toss within their paradigm of all things going down at 9.8 meters per second, but you're already along that argument too far anyway, in my opinion, if you're at that stage. Because if you're describing or arguing about what gravity does, you need to be getting them to define what gravity is first. So they say gravity. Okay, what is it? That's the first question. Because you need to define, or get them, the claimant, to define which gravity they're actually talking about. Because for all you know, they might not be talking about mass attracting mass. They might be talking about bending 4D spacetime.
Well, I always hear them. Well, I hear some of them mention the rate of acceleration. They say gravity is the rate of acceleration, and that's where I pin them down with the "so why don't I witness rain or hail demonstrating this rate of acceleration that you guys claim, you know?
Well, when they say the rate of acceleration, their rate of acceleration is in one direction, down. So, that's an incomplete description of what they're claiming in that instance. If the premise is that gravity is a downward bias, a downward vector, an accelerative force at 9.8 meters per second, then they need to actually show that happens. And it doesn't. Because gas doesn't do that. When they say rate of acceleration, what up? Like in the case of gas going towards the clouds. That acceleration rate. To time down on what they actually think gravity is. And when they think it's an acceleration down, point out that there is no acceleration down. Some things go up.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. But the only problem is the only things that go up per se are gas, and then they dismiss that there's forces acting alongside gravity, some which are stronger than gravity. I get into that argument with them.
And that would be called the force of
The upwards?
Sorry, the force of up. Yeah, that's also defined within gravity. They call it buoyancy, working on the premise that the layers of gas force the gases at ground level up. That would mean gases go down, go boom, boom. No, they don't. Gases are all created at ground level and all expanding in line with natural law, that's entropy, to fill the availability of volume. That means they're going up in all instances. They're not falling down like rain, or hail, or sleet.
Hello.
Hey, Neil.
I used to fall for those tricks too. I don't fall for them no more.
Thank you for expanding on it, Neil.
I used to fall for all of that nonsense. Listen, helium defies it. It goes up. Gases don't go down. End of story.
I had a call come through.
One more time.
I was just apologizing. I had a call come through and interrupt your description you're giving me.
No, it's just a repetition of the same thing. Gases don't go down.
They definitely don't. They also seem to go vertical too, which is again not down.
They expand in all directions, but their origin is the ground.
Yeah, and they overlook that too.
That's the key part, right? It starts at ground level, correct?
Yeah.
I also question them on how the gases develop the energy needed to escape the quote unquote atmosphere that they claim, because there's different temperatures to different spheres of air that they claim. So at some point that gas is losing energy. So where does it regain the energy to escape the Earth's atmosphere?
You don't want to worry about the ones they claim are escaping. That's a sleight of hand. Oh yeah, we've got this many tons of gas escaping into the sky vacuum all the time. No. What about the ones that aren't escaping? How are we at gas pressure if there's no containment? There'd be no gas pressure in the first place. It's not like, oh, we can maintain gas pressure in a vacuum and just a little bit of escape. It's like, no. That's a defiance of the second law of thermodynamics. The gas fills the space in all instances. So if the space is space, then gas fills it, all of it. Not the bit at the top that's not falling down, go boom boom, to press on the rest of it. What, some of it escapes into the sky vacuum because it doesn't go down, go boom boom. What, that stuff defies gravity, does it? But the rest of it's going down, go boom boom when it doesn't do that. No, total nonsense. Gas doesn't behave that way. Gas expands in all directions to fill the availability of space. How ironic. It has to fill.
Yep, the gas argument is troublesome for them at least.
Yep.
Because even in terms of how much gas escapes in regards to how much gas is produced, well, we have a consistent or a fairly consistent pressure at sea level. So then are we producing the same amount of gas that's escaping to maintain that equal pressure?
would never develop it in the first place. It's not like that. It's not like you can have a torrent of gas coming out of the ground constantly to stabilise the constant escaping gas in line with entropy. In the heliocentric model, entropy just simply doesn't apply because gas isn't filling space, literally. So therefore, in the heliocentric sphere-Earth model, it just ignores that law of nature that governs how gas will behave in all circumstances in nature, i.e. fill space.
Yep, correct.
I've spent, from the moment my girls got me up this morning, which was 5 a.m, till about half an hour ago when I had a shower, getting my computer to run silently. And now it does. Very pleased I am too. I have to find a balance where it can stay on with the minimal amount of fans and maintain a certain temperature with, like I say, the minimum. That's when it's doing nothing or just playing music. It needs to be literally silent when it's doing that. Then there's the next level up, which is doing the show, which is, again, I want a couple of fans on at the most, all at their absolute minimum, or both of them at their absolute minimum. And then the next level up is benchmarking. In other words, should things get tougher on the system, there's a limit that you can set by just running a game. So I've got some old games that are quite demanding that I can benchmark the system with to put it under full load. And I've done that as well and got it to be silent at that level. So last time I did this was about 7 or 8 years ago, and I did exactly the same. So benchmarked it with the same games and bought any new ones. And as the show got more complex, the demands got higher on the system, and the fans did come on, but they still maintained near silence even when they were under the heaviest of load before I got rid of it. Well, now I'm back at the beginning of that process, so now it's as silent as it can be, and even at full load it would still be very, very quiet. I said to my wife, because I can't be asked to play the games, so I wrote my wife into, I'm not a gamer, I couldn't care less. I'm like, can you play this game? It's for you. She's like, what do you mean it's for me? I'm like, I got it for you. Can you play on it? She's like, yeah. So she's playing it, and all I'm looking at is temperatures and frame rates and megahertz this and memory that. That's all I'm interested in, not playing the game. And I was like, look, as soon as I've got this done, these will never appear again, unless the girls are interested, which they probably won't be for several years. Anyway, that's what I've spent my morning and afternoon doing. Because you all care. I can tell you're all really enthusiastic about this.
Thrilling.
It is thrilling. To me, a silent PC now, whilst everything that I could use for the show to be functioning, it's not live, but if it was, one button more and it would be live, and it's essentially silent. I can't hear anything. That's what you want.
I agree. The better it gets, quieter is better, right? You don't want no noise at all.
No, exactly.
Which, by the way, every time I pass my son's room, that's all I hear is that PlayStation. It's so freaking loud.
Yeah, so that's what I want.
That was a major design flaw.
Go on, sorry.
I was just pointing out that PS5 nonsense is just a major design flaw.
Is that the latest one with the curvy shaped box that's upright?
Yes.
Yep. With too little airflow and too much heat being produced inside of it.
That's every game console ever since about the PlayStation 2.
I don't remember the Nintendo 64 as ever having these type of problems. It's all the
That's
new,
what I said.
new stuff, like you said.
N64 is a cartridge for a start, and that highly optimized Nintendo piece of equipment I take as the exception. But everything after that, including the GameCube, which came after, were just noisy little fart boxes that just made squealing and whistling noises as far as I was concerned. They're just irritating. But the cartridge ones were great. Silence, that's what you want.
They lost the technology, Nathan. It's a painful process to rebuild the old technology.
That's a good one.
Yeah, exactly. Meanwhile, every other bit of technology is taking leaps forward every generation of the equipment itself.
Yeah, we have the computing power that whole fucking shuttle had on a Game Boy, but still doesn't cut it, apparently.
Because it's all a lie.
Sounds about right.
Well, you can't get to the moon. Well, you might be able to get to the moon. I don't want to say you can't, but in the way they've described through a sky vacuum, they haven't been to the moon. They're lying.
Hey,
Did everybody see that video that's in Master B? Who posted it? 10th Man?
Our level Earth is not a belief. That.
Yes.
I saw
pretty good. I watched it.
Videos that showed. Sorry, guys. Sorry.
All right, it's just plugging the John Thor video that's plugged in Master B.
I saw a video that showed the astronauts and said that they were using sextants in space
I saw
that. To coordinate their path to the moon.
They line it up with the horizon, don't they? Obviously. Right, let's have a listen. So what's this about? Our level Earth is not a belief.
I'm going to hang up this phone, and then I'm going to show these people what you don't want them to see.
This is a ball. This is a bigger ball.
Sorry, what's this video actually about? Neil, you plugged this. Ugh, what a waste of time. Can you hear me, Neil?
I hear you now. I lost you for a while.
Oh, did you drop out? What's this video actually about? I've just played the first 10 seconds, and while it's very dramatic and all, is there a general gist of it at a certain point, or what?
Yeah, it's just taking you through the whole thing with level, how a ball, it's an impossibility to have the straight line going across, showing you scene after scene.
Okay, let's have a little go.
The size of ball makes no difference. The geometric principles remain the same. No matter where you stand on the ball, your horizon line will always be below eye level. This is a fundamental fact with no exceptions.
Okay, so far is detailing where on a ball you'd have a geometric horizon. Debunked by Black Swan. Okay.
On a ball, your horizon is a fixed point below eye level. It cannot rise. The higher you go, the farther you see. But the higher you go, the lower your horizon must be. And it can be demonstrated all day long.
Okay, so far I don't like it. It's working on the principle that we're on a ball in its example. Does it go on to Black Swan stuff or what?
I don't know. I didn't make the whole thing because it annoyed me too.
Yeah, this is very 2015 so far. Does it
The
ever point out?
demonstrations are pretty good because he has a straight line and he puts it everywhere he goes, on the top of a building, on a plane.
That Earth is not a belief.
So all it does is point out the false dichotomy. At no point does it state that the horizon's not Earth curve. It's just telling you how a globe Earth horizon would work. Okay, what's to stop somebody reifying this into the horizon at the end of the video? Does it actually point out that there is no geometric horizon, that the horizon's not Earth curve? It literally gives you the false dichotomy. Garbage! Why did you waste my time with this? 2015's calling. They want their bloody
That's
arguments
why I
back.
do.
Why are we
As
giving
soon as
people?
you said you see,
Why are we giving people the false dichotomy again? Why are we saying,
Nathan,
yeah,
as soon
okay?
as he,
Jesus, wait.
sorry, let me just say, as soon as he said see too far, I said I want Nathan to play it because I want to get it under his skin. Our arguments are way advanced.
Yeah, this is a very 2015 positioning that's negative to us because it puts the false dichotomy in the brain of the person watching the video. So they can go forth and argue that the horizon should drop away or should be somewhere. No, the horizon shouldn't be anywhere, isn't too far away, and was debunked in 2020 by the Black Swan. The horizon is not Earth curve. Of course, in that video it is, and they're telling you all about how it is right at the beginning, and then telling you how it doesn't compare to a little ball. But that doesn't stop anybody in the mind's eye of a ball-believing idiot saying, well, the horizon still is that ball Earth edge. Because no one said otherwise. Just give them the false dichotomy. What garbage video. John Thor's normally better than that.
Just shows the difference. That's all. Where we are, where they are.
It'll probably get a bazillion views. It's got dramatic music.
Yeah, but Nathan, why don't you do a counter video? Same style, but Black Swan.
I do make counter videos. Do you have any idea how many videos I publish a day, Neil?
No. I mean, similar to what you just heard. I know you put out videos, but I mean in that fashion, how he's doing it with the dramatic music. But Black Swan it. That's a bunch of nonsense. This is what it's all
because
about.
I find it offensive, frankly. So the dramatic music to build up the false dichotomy in that instance. I've given the analogy before, which I robbed from Gordon Ramsay, right? So Gordon Ramsay goes and visits one of the chefs that's looking to improve his business, right? And he takes him to this pub/restaurant that's very highly regarded. And while they're sitting there talking about his business, the owner / chef bartender at this moment says, "Can I get you a drink?" And the two chefs, he says, yeah. But Gordon Ramsay orders a very particular type of whiskey. So he orders this whiskey for both of them, and the guy pours out two measures of whiskey. He says, "Can I have some ice in it?" It's Gordon Ramsay. And the bartender says, "No." Says, "I'm paying for this. I'll have ice in it if I want it." He says, "No, it's a particular composition chemically. If you alter that by putting ice in it, it essentially destroys what you've gone to the great effort of maturing in such a manner that it becomes what it is in the glass right now. You don't need to add anything to it. Just drink it." And he's like, "You're telling me how to drink my drink?" Gordon Ramsay, that is. He says, "Yeah, I am." Essentially, I do know better than you, and I am telling you that's how you drink that particular drink. There's no point in having that class of whiskey if you're going to put ice in it. You know, there's plenty of other whiskies that you can if you must have ice in it. Just this one isn't for that. So he's explaining it, and then he turns the analogy into something like a steak or something similar, something food related, where if you've got a really good quality cut of meat, you garnish it, you cook it, and you serve it. You don't need to cover it in lettuce leaves, French fries, peppercorn sauce, ketchup, ranch. You don't need all that. Just cook it and eat it. Now, when it comes to the presentation of a video, yes, there's been many times that I've looked at and considered doing precisely that, giving it the dramatic music. But for what? For what? When you're making something that's got the quality ingredients, for me, why do I need to garnish it with sugar and cherries? I don't I see that as quite crass. I've got to be honest.
I got you. How about just a video of you tearing that apart?
I've done
Then
many of
enough
my
with this, you
videos.
see too far.
I've done that on multiple videos. Talk about the fact that flat earthers shouldn't claim they see too far. It opens the door to the false dichotomy. I have done that.
Do it again, I ain't listening.
Yeah, thank you, Neil.
I'm just kidding. You're on top of it. You are.
Doing that, it's maybe I know people like it. I know YouTube promote it, but I don't want to do what I don't want to do. You know, I can get behind putting several hours, sometimes many hours into producing an edited video, and I'm happy to do it. You know, I'll go to the effort of editing out the swearing so it's less offensive and more impactful, despite my inability to control my language when I'm annoyed. But I'll edit that out. It takes a long time because people have specifically suggested that they want that. At no point has any commenter ever said, you know what, this would have been much better with a build-up with music. No one's ever said that to me. So, you know, it's one step above the whiz bangs and the hooty hoots and the sound bites and the clips and this just 1980s DJ, 1980s Radio 1 DJ. That's what I think of when I hear that. I remember Anthony, when I was really early on in the show, suggesting doing just that. I'll show you how to do it. I'll give you a soundboard. No, thank you. It's like, look at mine. When something interesting happens, I press this button and it goes zoom. Or I press this button, a little man appears on screen and does a dance. And I could vomit, frankly. I see it from Twitch streamers who've transitioned to YouTube. So they're obviously gamers, but they've been on there for maybe 5 to 10 years. I don't know how long Twitch has been around, but some of these guys are similar age to me. You know, they're not young guys. And they're doing what Twitch does because it's for the kids. And I understand that. Now, if you take offence to that because you're a 50-year-old gamer... That's all I got to say about that. But for the guys doing it who transitioned to Twitch and have got their dancing men when Bigo67 Chelsea has subscribed, and then there's a dancing Michael Jackson. You just think, you wanker. You wanker. That's all I think. And when I see that and think that and laugh the way I'm laughing now when I see it, I've seen it with loads of people covering Johnny Depp because they've transitioned from their usual live streaming games to covering Johnny Depp and Amber Heard. Fine, because I like the content. I like everyone's opinion on it. I like to get a general gist of what everyone's saying. But I see these people who are obvious gamers from Twitch, and I'm just there shaking my head at them going, God, you're my age. You know, what are you doing? Appealing to the kids. I mean, if it works, I guess. But I'd feel like I was selling my soul if I did it, Neil. There you go. There's my expanded answer. Now you watch all the commenters going, no, we want the whiz bangs and the dramatic music.
I just think your stern voice, just picking that apart, is fine.
I take this very seriously, and that sort of thing, to me, it just doesn't work. There's a limit. You know, there's a fine balance to doing stuff like that. QE steps over the line quite frequently in that regard. I'm not knocking QE, he's fantastic. But he does do a bit of it. You know, he's from perhaps the generation prior to my generation, and, you know, maybe through his 30s, he was really, really into that kind of DJing on the radio. So it's become part of his style. Fine. You know, he doesn't push it too far too often, but he does push it too far, and that's just personal taste, though. You know, I'm sure there's plenty of people out there who love it for what it is, but just not me. I like to take things a little bit more seriously. Doesn't mean we can't have a laugh now and again. Just not too much, all right?
Yeah, but I think QE, it's the nonsense of it all. I think QE captured that.
Well, I see this as a product. You know, it doesn't matter that the product I'm selling is in contravention to a non-product that's a phony, a fake, a fraud, a sham, a scam. That's my counterpart. That's my competitor. But he's managed to corner the market with this phony, sham, scam, fake globe. So, okay, doesn't alter the fact that there's slightly more, if you want to look at it in reality, boring. Let's be honest. The flat plane, by comparison, if you just took them in isolation and presented it to two non-entities, what we'd used to call outer space aliens, right? You present it to both of them and go, which one's more exciting? And they look at the two and they go, flat plane, you walk along it, that's it. Versus hanging off the bottom of it, outer space, galaxies far, far away, infinite expanding universe, wormholes, black holes, time dilation, infinite parallel universes. Wow! Which one's more exciting?
Actually, my son was telling me that they've discovered a black hole, and there's video of it.
So the thing about a black hole, right? The fundamental, basic colour of a black hole, right, is this black. And the thing about space, the colour of space, your basic space colour, is this black. So how are you supposed to see him?
Is that a red dwarf thing?
Of course it is.
Well, that's what I said. How do they know if everything is black? How do they know that they're viewing a black hole? Measurements.
From an episode called Marooned, which in acting terms is a very, very fine piece of acting by Craig Charles and what's the other guy called? God, I should remember, he's far more famous. Not Robert Llewellyn. I can't remember the guy who plays Rimmer now. That's terrible. He did spit an image and everything.
Good morning.
Good morning. But they did a great little piece of acting. So
hang on. Didn't Neil just violate "We See Too Far" with going into the black hole?
Maybe.
Neil, you just did the very thing you don't like.
My son.
No, you said to Nathan.
Anyway, Marooned. So Marooned is a Red Dwarf episode that's predominantly in one scene on only a couple of cameras, just acting. There's no aliens coming to get them. There's a snowstorm outside, but that's about it. But predominantly it's in one area for the whole episode, and just takes good acting.
If we see too far in the level of arguments we have, I think you've nailed it. We shouldn't even go there. But as people come into flat Earth, it's like one of the earliest things that they use to validate why they no longer believe in the globe, until they realize in the depths of debate, it shouldn't be used. Do you follow what I'm saying?
Absolutely. It opens the door to the false dichotomy. I think we said it before you got here.
Well, I'm just saying that initially when people come to flat Earth, and I've had a lot of friends and friends of friends say, yeah, and plus we see too far, and I just let them continue, because I'm not going to rain on that, because if you live on a globe of that radius size, you should only see to the horizon. And what is the horizon? And then we kind of start doing that with them. And then later on, if they come to your show, they could hear the whole argument in context. But much like the Black Swan, modus tollens, I believe, you use their position to show how silly it is.
Exactly.
So can't you use, we see too far in the modus tollens? Has someone put that together?
Well, it is part of the premise of modus tollens, because you're saying if the Earth was a sphere, then you'd see this distance based on these measurements. We see beyond this distance at these measurements, therefore Earth's not a sphere and the horizon's not Earth curve.
Right.
You trying to say it's a fancy way of saying we see too far?
Well,
No, it's not a fancy way of saying we see too far, because if you just say we see too far, you're opening the door to the false dichotomy again, because in terms of their qualification for what too far or too near or whatever they're going to qualify is, they can give you the mathematics so long as we all assume that the horizon is Earth curve, and then we'll figure out whether we're seeing too far or not. But at the end of the modus tollens argument, you're pointing out that the horizon isn't Earth curve, because the geometric limitation would be at the distances they say, and it isn't.
Right. I got it.
I haven't started yet.
10th man, I was wondering where you were because I seen you and I wasn't hearing anything.
Well, I turned it on, and then I had to get my tea, then I had to get my refill of my tea, so I wasn't talking.
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link, together with a thanks button in the info box below the video. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show on Facebook and Twitter. Now, we are joined by Neil, 10th Man, and a whole bunch of people in Discord, so welcome one and all.
All right, let's get it on today.
Good morning. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Discord, good morning.
It's not it's not becoming a frequent thing now. Every live show, do the warm up, get everyone ready, chitty chatting along. Live show starts, no response from Discord. Right, Neil
I'm
and
trying to
10th.
figure out if they're there.
Let's just check out if they can actually answer some housekeeping questions. Actually, let's spin this around a little bit. Arwin's not here. He'd normally play Baldwin. You ask the housekeeping questions. I'll play Baller. Go ahead.
All right. Any signs of physical geometric sphere edge horizon, formerly known as Earth curve?
Not formally known as, the horizon is Earth curve. You can see it and calculate it.
Then
Come on, Discord. You can join in. You can disagree.
I think everybody's afraid of Baller, Nathan.
Did you
Don't be
measure it or
scared.
calculate it?
Pardon?
Did you measure it or did you calculate it?
I measured it.
How'd you measure
I looked at it.
it? Well, I'm looking at it too.
I could compare it to things in the distance it was obscuring with its physicality.
Oh, so it's got physicality.
Yeah, it blocks boats and buildings into the distance with a calculable value. That would be the physical edge limitation called Earth curve. Blocks boats and buildings. Obviously.
Oh, okay. Obviously. And where does it start that? Let's say you're at a 1 foot observer height. Where would that be? Where would that?
It's 1.2 times the square root of the observer's height in feet. 1.2 times 1, 1.2 miles.
All right. So if you're 1 foot high, the Earth curve must start at 1.2 miles. It can be no further than that, right?
Yeah. That's where it will
Okay,
be.
so-
Blocking boats and buildings, as it does, because it's a hill getting in the way, called Earth curve.
Obviously. All right. So if we can prove that it's further than that, then you don't have Earth curve at 39.59 and 1 foot high, do you?
Impossible. Earth curve's a
What's
physical
your-
limitation to your view. It's going to block your view. That's what limits your view. It's the only thing that limits your view.
Well, obviously, you've been limited on your research because you haven't heard about the black swan.
No, I haven't. What's that?
Neil?
I'm in the middle of fixing my kitchen. You're gonna have to take it.
You're fixing
Hold
your
on, hold on.
kitchen.
Go ahead, Mr. Palmer.
Yeah.
Mr. Palmer.
Oh, someone in Discord?
Yeah. There's a couple of them hovering off mute that aren't talking to us, but that were in the pre-show. Shy with the live show, maybe. Go ahead. What's the black swan? I have no idea what you're talking about.
Mr. Palmer?
No, he's got on mute now.
Were they chat skanking before all this?
I don't know.
The black swan is an image taken where the horizon is miles past where it's supposed to be geometry. What's the word I'm looking for?
Geometric.
Geometrically wise.
Beyond its geometric limitation, you mean?
Yes, that too.
Okay. Well, let's just say for a second that my claim earlier that it is physical and geometric and measurable and blocking boats and buildings. Let's just forget all of that and now claim that it's refracted in a non-geometric position. Why not? So I relinquish all of my previous claim. The horizon that we see is a byproduct of the geometric horizon. What say you?
Well, if it's refracted, how'd you ever measure it?
Measure what?
The distance.
The radius.
It's in the
Nice.
maths. I've already got it. I beg the question of it.
Yes, I know. You calculated it because it only exists in the math, so you never measured it.
Right, but it still exists in reality. It's refracted from the geometric to the non-geometric one we see. Relinquishing all
prove it.
previous claims of physicality that I made earlier with it blocking boats and buildings because it was a hill in the way. I'm just going to relinquish all of that because now it's going to be refracted. Are we clear?
Yeah, but you're still going to have to prove it, right? If you're going to presuppose it,
Yeah, that's
that's
perfectly
nice.
acceptable.
If you, in the end, can actually deliver the evidence. But you still got to do that.
We see
How are you gonna
horizons
do
all
it?
the time. That's the evidence. It's refracted. None of you are debunking my claim that it's refracted. Light refracts. What's wrong with you?
The horizon cannot be displaced in relation to the horizon through refraction or miraging.
Yeah, it can. Light bend stuff. That's refraction. Refraction's real. The horizon can be refracted. Again, meaning that I will relinquish all previous claims that it's a physical limitation to our view blocking boats and buildings. I'm going to relinquish all claims of geometry and earth curve physicality to now tell you that it's non-physical, refracted, because light does bend.
But I'm sorry, optics studies have actually revealed that the horizon cannot be displaced in relation to the horizon. Only objects.
What do you reckon,
That
ladies and
stand
gentlemen?
out.
I don't think my panel are doing too well. I'm still going.
Refraction.
light
7/6R, or what kind of refraction are you talking about?
Is it? There it is. Sorry, what was that? Can you repeat that? 10th?
Are you assuming 7/6R refraction, or what other refraction could there be besides the one you're assuming?
I am going to be assuming atmospheric refraction. That's correct. Nothing wrong with that.
Based on what? 7/6R?
Or any
Assuming the Earth
derivative
is a
of
globe?
R. It might not necessarily be 7/6 of a radius I can no longer measure because I haven't got a physical horizon. But basically, yes, it's based on R. That's my quote-unquote refraction that Arwin never got to.
I did.
No, you didn't. You chose to argue about what refraction could do.
Yeah.
Where'd you get R?
Right.
In my refraction, well, I got it from a physical geometric
Actual
limitation
refraction.
called Earth curve, the horizon.
But you just relinquished that, though.
Which we debunked.
Look, I can have my cake and eat it. I can have both a physical geometric limitation to our view, blocking boats and buildings and measurable in that effect, and I can have it be where it's non-physical, refracted into a non-geometric position with the very geometry I've relinquished, okay? That's acceptable.
Did you learn that from Phil B?
Look, I will just continue to hold on to the fact that my refraction's been debunked because I can no longer measure the R it's based on, and assert that refraction is real.
Yeah, but then you can't prove it.
No, I haven't got the R value or measurable or capability of measuring it at this point because I've relinquished all physicality to get geometry from with tangent points. But nevertheless, don't you know that refraction's real 7/6R, which is based on R, is physical sphere-shaped air refraction that we do experience. It's not just in my model, obviously.
No, you can't prove it because you're assuming the R within what you're presupposing, but you never get to proving it, and you've already relinquished that you can't.
No,
so
you missed,
it's just a delusional statement.
Owen's not as sharp as he might seem. Okay, no, I pointed out we've got atmosphere, so that's how light behaves in atmosphere. There's laws that govern it. The R's
No, it
assumed in
doesn't.
atmosphere.
Right, is that colloquial use of the word the air around us, or are you literally meaning a geometric shape of air?
What with atmo? Atmo, what now? Sphere? Yeah, I'm definitely assuming geometry and sphere shapes when I say atmosphere. It's just the last thing that hasn't been addressed in my current globe position.
Okay, well, air doesn't actually take this shape of spheres unless it is in a specifically spherical shaped container, which the heliocentric model does not have. So, where's this atmosphere?
Gas go down, go boom boom. It forms homogeneous layers to press down on the gas below.
Really? What about a helium balloon?
It also goes down, go boom boom. You just don't understand gas.
Like in puddles?
Yes,
Or-
puddles of gas, that's correct. Gas go down, go boom boom, go splash splash.
Can you show me some of that?
No. However,
Well, this is a good.
I could show you if I bring in a container of gas that's very inert, very dense, let's say, compacted together under high pressure in a container. If I pump some of that into a different container temporarily, it will stay at the bottom and take a very long time to diffuse. Ergo, gas go down, go boom boom. There you go, done.
But if it only stays temporarily, then how is it going to actually permanently stay here on presupposed sphere Earth?
Second law of thermodynamics doesn't apply to globe Earth. So when you say on sphere Earth, obviously I mean reality, even though I'm talking about a globe Earth model called the heliocentric model that doesn't really exist. You'll never see it. But in that model, the second law of thermodynamics, a natural law, a law of nature that applies to gas, doesn't apply to sphere Earth. There you go. Shout out to Rebecca, who says Nathan playing the role of a baller is too funny. Oh, well, thank you very much, Rebecca. Really appreciate it.
Well, it's a good time to ask Nathan the baller, any evidence of the Earth radius, the R value?
No, I relinquished it earlier when I said you couldn't get to a physical geometric sphere edge horizon. I claim block boats and buildings by way of it being refracted, so I'm not going to be able to take a tangent point to it to get a value for it. Also, if I'm going to measure it by way of elevation angles to Polaris as I move away and see a 1 degree elevation change towards the horizon at 60 nautical miles, then I'll need a flat plane to measure that. So any derivation to get to R is going to need a flat plane. So that's not too...
So where's this flat plane on a globe Earth?
There isn't.
So sad.
But if I assume a flat plane teeter-tottering on top of a globe, I can call it a tangent plane. Boom, done.
So since
Where is it then in reality?
But just imagine looking out towards the horizon with a straight line, that the one that's no longer refracted, even though I said it was earlier, it's now going to be a straight line like the one that went to the horizon that blocked boats and buildings. That's going to be straight again. So just forget that I relinquished that the horizon isn't blocking boats and buildings because it's refracted now and non-physical. And now just forget all I said about that and go back to the original claim that it is physical with a straight line to it, tangent point to it. Cool?
So, since you jettisoned R, any
No, I
evidence
didn't.
to
No.
distance-
Don't misrepresent what I said. I was very clear and
Okay.
specific. I didn't jettison R. I said, now imagine a straight line to the horizon. That straight line is going to be what we use to measure angles off a tangent plane that isn't the ground. Definitely not the sphere ground, which still exists, but isn't going to be used in this instance. Straight lines, tangent points, tangent planes. It's all going to be good. It's all going to be sphere-shaped.
Okay, that's fine. Then let's move on to this next one. Any evidence that you can have a curved baseline while acquiring an elevation angle?
No, but I can get an elevation angle from a straight line that meets the sphere surface. So that straight line I can call a baseline after I do dip correction to the straight horizontal line that I establish either with the horizon or with the level. And the correction that isn't being done to the geometric horizon now because I switched it around with the horizon we're looking at, that correction means there's a correction from a geometric horizon, the one with a straight line. Because now we won't see it again. We all clear?
You're not allowing us to respond. You're just debunking yourself as you go.
I'm not. I'm just giving the disclaimers.
No, but if you're gonna use something else as a baseline, then you're using something else, not the baseline anymore. So you're just not doing it then, I guess.
I'm just not doing it on the sphere Earth surface.
Oh, for sure.
He's
That's all right.
flip-flop more than a sandal store.
But hold on, me not doing this measurement of an angle off the sphere Earth surface doesn't mean there isn't a sphere Earth surface. It just means that I can't measure an angle from it, and I've got a tangent to it because I've got a straight line to it to the point that blocks boats and buildings that I relinquished because it was non-geometric refracted, and then I've reintroduced it so I can do this to correct from the horizon I previously said we could see with a straight line to it to the one that we do see, and that correction is from the globe Earth. So obviously, based on all of that, there is a globe Earth.
Mesmerizing.
What the hell, dude?
Mesmerizing.
This is getting out of hand.
You just can't debunk it.
It's great. I love it. Any single viable hypothesis from any of the fields of cosmology, astronomy, or astrophysics?
Absolutely. There's the Cavendish experiment.
You call that an experiment?
Yeah, it must have a hypothesis.
Well, what is it?
I've had enough
Oh, the
with this
hypothesis. I'm
ball.
glad you asked. If mass, yeah, because obviously mass, the balls in the shed, they're the mass, right? Well, if mass, then mass attracts mass.
Is that naturally occurring
Where-
in nature?
what's
Balls in the
mass?
shed?
It's the thing you
Exactly,
vary.
thanks.
That's a reasonable question. The thing you vary in the experiment, obviously, independent variable mass. That's what we'll be varying when fulfilling the hypothesis. If mass, then mass attracts mass.
Where do
How
we
are you
see?
varying it?
I vary the mass. That's very easy. I can just vary the amount of it.
Yeah. Well, where do you see balls in a shed in nature naturally occurring?
Well, there wouldn't be any if men hadn't made them, and men are natural.
Wait a second. He said science. Let him define science.
I did. I
Go
even
the
gave you the
scientific method
hypothesis.
first, baller.
I don't need to. I obviously know what it is. I even gave you the hypothesis for Cavendish. What more do you want?
So what's the DV?
The dependent variable, the fact that mass attracts mass that we observe in nature. That I told you. If mass,
Yeah, but how do we observe it in nature? Show me that in nature.
well, obviously mass attracts mass.
No, you're assuming it, but you're not showing me in nature. You have two man-made objects in the shed that are man-made. That's not naturally occurring in nature. So
Men
can
are
I-
natural. Men are natural.
Men are natural.
I am natural.
None.
Absolutely.
Not these days. These days, Supreme Court justices don't even know what a man is.
Supreme Court
All right.
justices are also natural.
All right. Any evidence to the distance of the sun?
Hold on, you're going to let me get away with that? I'm actually proving a ball to people at the moment unless you undo this. You've caused this mess.
Oh, I've caused this mess.
No,
I'm
I have,
natural.
but I like to project. I'm a baller.
I'm natural. Don't attack me.
So come on, are you going to undo this or what?
Undo what? You're the one sounding silly to all these good housekeeping questions.
These are the answers that we've had. What? I can't do any better than I've done. I've represented what they tell us.
I know. I'm not letting the audience enjoy it and have a taste. It lasts a little longer. Why go for another argument? But just remember how many times you've switched and flip-flopped. That's
Okay.
symbolic for you, right?
As far as I'm concerned, we've got a tangent plane and we've got angles from it and to it, and that makes the globe Earth that we're not using for the ground definitely spherical, because I can correct from it when I look at the non-horizon that isn't geometric, because I both relinquish it, refract it, and draw a line to it when it blocks boats and buildings. I mean, I've got every base covered here, basically.
Yeah, you sound like Phil B.
Yeah.
I've got every base
It just
covered.
makes-
You just can't refute what I say. That's all there is to it.
It's too comical, that's why. All right, let's go on with your little sphere game. Any evidence of self-perpetuating molten iron core at the center of a presupposed spherical Earth?
Absolutely.
Do you need a tangent plane for that one? Do you need
No,
a tangent
it's in
plane?
every textbook. We all understand and know that the magnetic fields that we have are as a direct consequence of that molten iron core, and I even know how it got there. Do you want to know how it got there?
Sure, tell us the little...
A long
nursery
time
rhyme.
ago, in a galaxy far, far away, there was this fledgling planet known as Thea, and the fledgling planet was on a collision course with a fledgling Earth. But for the fact that this fledgling planet collides with the fledgling Earth at a glancing blow, not destroying it, but in fact depositing its juicy, gooey, tasty molten iron core into the centre of the presupposed spherical Earth in this story. And the debris, which obliterated everywhere, coalesced through gravitational accretion into what we now call the moon. And that is the story of how we had a oversized, still warm, molten iron core at the centre of the presupposed spherical Earth. Thea smashed into it, didn't destroy it, but the two cores combined, hence the timeline within the heliocentric system that wouldn't work otherwise because we'd have all died because it would be too cold and we wouldn't have any magnetic fields. Still works because Thea smashed into us and created the moon. There you go.
Any evidence of that?
The moon. Can you not
The
see
light
the
in the
moon?
sky?
Hello, there's a moon.
I like the story hour of the Globe Lies. You do it well.
So the light in the sky validates your story.
Absolutely.
No, the proof is petrified wood found on the moon.
That's
I
why.
can't even take this serious.
Perfect. See, Arwen understands. Yeah, when they give us
Arwen.
this nonsense about finding petrified wood and saying that the moonstones have come from Earth because they seem like something on Earth, no. Obviously, when Thea smashed into Earth at a glancing blow, there was some wood that went into that debris and obviously became petrified on the moon for Neil deGrasse Tyson to, not Neil deGrasse Tyson, Neil Armstrong to pick up while he was urinating on the moon, as he did. Obviously.
Wow, I love these stories. They just have a life on their own.
I'm sorry, guys. I just have to surrender to him. He's too powerful.
Not really. Any evidence that you can have gas pressure without the necessary antecedent of a container to press upon?
Yes. That's how
okay,
gas
go on.
behaves. Gas go down, go boom, boom, to form homogeneous layers. What are you laughing at? This is what...
Yeah, second law of thermodynamics doesn't apply to the sphere.
What about my helium balloon, Nathan?
So a second law of thermodynamics doesn't apply to the Earth, Neil. Now, if you don't mind, we're trying to educate you here. So all gas goes down.
Let's pick up on gas, go down, boom, boom. Go on,
That's
explain
right.
that.
Yes, gas go down, go boom, boom. So when you describe a helium balloon, because Neil's ignorant, what's actually happening is the gases that surround that helium balloon are pressing down, going down, like rain.
So gas goes down.
Yes. 9.8 meters per second. It's gravity, Neil. Have you never heard of it?
Couldn't eat off of that.
But you had never seen hexafluoride or sulfur hexafluoride?
Exactly, Arwin. You
course
never
it
seen
goes
sulfur
down.
hexafluoride? You bring it in a container, you deposit it into another container, and if you only look at it for a short period of time, it looks like it's staying there. Defying... let's not mention entropy. That doesn't apply.
How do we get gas pressure, though, Nathan the Baller?
How do we get gas pressure? By the gas
the
going down, go
gravity.
boom boom. It's pressing on us when it goes down, go boom boom. 9.8 meters
Right.
per second.
Gas pressure comes from the gravity all pushing it down and then compressing it like that.
See, Arwin knows
sir.
what he's talking about.
So is there a viable demonstration of this you can show us?
He just told you sulfur hexafluoride. This man-made gas comes in a container, gets deposited in a different container, and for a short period of time, it stays in the
Does
container.
it stay there?
So it comes
Temporarily,
in a container.
yes. Temporarily, yes.
It comes in a container. It gets deposited in another container. How did
That's
it
right.
even get anywhere in the beginning?
I should have qualified that. In order to show gas pressure without a container, I need 2 containers.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Right. Or you just need to get out of the atmosphere and then show it that, yeah, there is a vacuum out there. It's
That's
just
right, I'm
down here, gravity is all compacting.
Sphere shape
So
there?
you gotta look down here, the gravity is all compacting the air. So you gotta make separate containers to actually create a vacuum. But
What
up there,
gravity?
it's all directly open and there's just a vacuum endlessly.
What's
Define gravity.
gravity?
What?
We're talking about gravity. Gas go down, go boom boom. Try and keep up.
Define gravity.
Gas go down, go boom boom. 9.8 meters per second.
And my helium balloon goes up.
Because the gas around it goes down, go boom boom. 9.8 meters per second squared.
Gas does not behave that way. You ignorant baller.
Yes, it does. Sulfur
Yes, it does.
hexafluoride. Pay
That's right.
attention.
Did you forget about the demonstration?
Sulfur hexafluoride will eventually make its way up.
Eventually. No, second law of thermodynamics doesn't apply to the Earth. When you scale it up, it doesn't apply that way. So the fact that it will behave that way in terms of the demonstration I gave doesn't necessarily mean the demonstration I gave in this example will in any way correlate with a sphere Earth. That model doesn't have the second law of thermodynamics applied to it. Ergo, the gas will not fill space.
Right,
Model,
and
you say?
hold
Can I
on.
see this model?
Neil, the sulfur hexafluoride might disperse from the aquarium, but you know it's just going to form columns at the floor bottom, right? That's what gas does.
Yes, it's just going to come out and then spill over and go down, go boom, boom again. That's what it does. And that's what all gases do. And even if it doesn't and it fills the space, that doesn't apply to the Earth because the second law doesn't apply. So even if you're going to describe the dispersion of the gas throughout the classroom in that example, that second law of thermodynamics doesn't apply to sphere Earth.
Well, your gravity is Newtonian, and that's not applied anymore. It's Einsteinian now.
Look, when I want to explain that gas goes down, go boom, boom, then the second law is ignored and gas has gravity pulling it down, go boom, boom. Right? When you show gas not doing that, then that is the second law, but we're not talking about Earth. When we are talking about Earth, we're not talking about the ground, we're talking about a model, and that model doesn't have the law applied to it. I hope we're all clear now.
Yeah, besides, helium balloons might go up, but that's only because of buoyancy, because the gravity basically pushes the heavier gases down in relation to the lighter gas, which will like float on top of it.
That's correct.
10th man, kick them both out.
That's correct. He's
Right.
right. You just scared him.
No, all are welcome, including these two guys who are just talking endlessly.
You just scared of our globe Earth argument. Arwin and I are as one.
Just
of us.
haven't proven anything. You
I love
circle
it.
jerking us.
The
Let's go
audience
down,
knows
go
the arguments, Neil. Don't worry.
We will break you, Neil.
We will make
Do
you a
it
baller.
now.
How many fingers? Say 4 one more time.
Well, that was fun. That ends the housekeeping questions.
You didn't ask about scientific
Thank
evidence.
God.
What's that? I did.
Did you?
Yeah.
Oh, fair enough.
Hypothesis.
Well, that was fun. Halfway through the
That
show
was
already.
fun.
Not quite 100
So
people
you got
watching,
the-
but
You weren't
nearly.
serious? What?
No. So let's review what happened. Nathan knows both arguments real well, and you can see I just rampaged along, skipping and jumping, and when he lost on one, he just jumped to the other, and which then he had to negate the first one, and then he came back to the first one after the second one got negated. So that was pretty fun.
I'm sorry, but he refuted every claim. So
He tried.
I won in all scores because Arwin's on my side. Therefore, it doesn't matter how much wrong I stated. It's all right as far as Arwin's concerned as a baller. That's how it works. If I talk total nonsense now about the gas lamp in Narnia actually being real, Arwin will and must agree with how right I am, because at the end of my example with the gas lamp in Narnia, I'm going to talk about how Earth's a sphere and the sky is a vacuum. Therefore,
Well-
correct? Right, Arwin?
Well, Nathan, you are much more an expert on how things work in Narnia, so yeah, I'm gonna have to trust you on that.
Absolutely. And, how did it know to be food?
Well, in chat, they're saying Nathan has to play baller to spice up the show. And I said, well, because you cowards won't come in. You're just going to stay in chat. Come on in. All are welcome.
Shatner's Bassoon has given us his, I think what it says, when it says member for 15 months, someone filled me in, because I thought, oh, does that mean they've renewed their membership for a whole 15 months? No, it means they've been a member for 15 months, and they get one super chat a month for being a member. So I think that's why it logs the super chat in that way. But thank you very much indeed for the super chat, Shatner's Bassoon. It says, FED, home of the best helio-skeptics. Share the show. Indeed, you do. Thank you very much indeed.
It'd be fun to have a real baller who doesn't know who you are listen to you and then say, wait a minute, that's the position I held. You just gave it up for this other thing. And then he'd be like, what are you doing?
Well, you get
They
quick fire
just
rebuttals
genuinely
from you
believe
guys.
we would be ballers, because when we do that, we are, right? And we're really good at it. We're much better ballers, especially together, dude. We'd be like the champion of heliocentrism.
Not hard though, is it? Let's be honest. Their position's much easier to argue.
No, it is hard, Nathan. It's just that we've become so good
Yeah,
at dealing with it that it's not hard to us to emulate it. It is hard, though.
I don't think
Yeah,
so.
but you could circle jerk
Believe
all
it's
you want.
real, because
Think
your
about-
belief in it being real is going to actually fuzzy it up for you. See?
If you
No,
separate
they-
it out
they-
into the pro debaters versus the normies that come here, occasionally we'll see some random face that typically becomes this person does not exist on the thumbnail, but they'll never be seen again. But they'll come with a fairly reasonable idea about what they're going to debate and reasonable understanding of heliocentrism in general, and within a few minutes they've had their ass handed to them and be circle jerking or fundy chanting or calling me an idiot. That doesn't take very long with your normie. But with the upper echelons of the people who've been around chat skanking and debating this subject for a long time, they can do what I did, jump around between the different things. But that doesn't take a great deal of effort to train people in. I mean, over the 7 or 8 years or however long it's been, I've watched our opponents who started similar to me at a similar time to me as anti-flat earthers come up through the ranks in terms of how they can talk nonsense because they've been trained how to do it. But they've got a much better foundation for understanding how the argument should progress. Now, while they might seem like complicated arguments when you're talking about tangent planes, because they are of the fundamental foundation that Earth is a sphere, they can stick themselves in that mindset to have that understanding, like most people in the Western world, with any basic argument from the sphere. So they can typically debate it, especially if they're of the mindset, with a normie, that we're complete idiots. Now, it might not necessarily be the case that the people who are on the pro-flat Earth side that are out doing it all the time see us as idiots. They'll just say it because they know they can get away with it, because it's the general consensus view that you can get away with basically bullying and browbeating flat earthers.
Well, there were some get out cards that they use all the time, and you went over them. One is refraction. You want to comment on how they misuse refraction?
Well, it's a bait and switch trick. So they tell you about refraction and refraction being real. They might even give you a few examples with sugar water or various other effects with, I don't know, some gas being released and some plasticine behind it, or whatever they show you to show that light can deviate from its path, which is generally straight. And when they do, they'll then cause a commotion and swap out the suitcases. Close the suitcase as you start looking back at them, so you assume what you've just been handed in the suitcase is refraction, like you were shown with the light bending, right? No, what's actually in the suitcase when they do the bait and switch is terrestrial refraction, 7/6 of the radius value, derived from geometry that's been debunked, and derived from geometry that takes a flat plane to measure, and isn't air transitioning through different mediums a la Snell's law. It is, in fact, a mathematical derivation of an R value and an assumption that air takes the shape of a sphere, hence atmosphere. Well, that assumption bends the light at a rate of the radius, 7/6R in standard form, also known as atmospheric refraction. Well, atmosphere in and of itself is an oxymoron. Air doesn't take the shape of its sphere. So to assert that light will just generally deviate from its path at a rate of r because the air is sphere-shaped is an assumption that only takes place in maths, and that maths has been debunked and isn't actual refraction. You've been duped. You might have been shown a few examples of refraction, but terrestrial refraction it is not.
Okay, a close kin to that was the word atmosphere that he used. So tie that in when they use atmosphere to refraction.
One more time.
Another word you used as you were playing baller was the word, and you leaned heavily upon it, was atmosphere. So relate that to refraction, how since it's got air shape in the sphere.
Well, it's the assumption that light is going to transition like it's going through multiple layers of glass. So if you imagine from your position on a sphere-Earth surface falling away from you to create a geometric limitation called Earth curve at the horizon, well, as the light increases its density as it moves over that sphere surface, it's going to transition the light according to their description at their rate of r. So each time it goes through a slightly thicker layer of atmosphere, it would transition. And if you imagine each transition, each stage of the journey being like a piece of glass, it's going to constantly curve the light into your eye from the position in the distance at the horizon, i.e. Earth curve. Well, that light bending with respect to the horizon that's blocking things behind it or refracting them up with respect to it, that refraction requires air to be sphere-shaped to give you this justification. And the only reason the air would be sphere-shaped is if the ground's falling away from you, causing a geometric limitation to your view, aka Earth curve. Well, if you debunk both, you can't have your cake and eat it. You can't say, I've got the geometric limitation to give me r, to give me the rate that light bends around it. Well, if you got the r from the limitation that's geometric, what is it, no atmo day? How did you get the r in the first place? Did you measure it from a flat plane with elevation angles to Polaris, or did you arrive at the Al-Biruni method by dip angle measurement to a geometric limitation with a straight line to it? Because that's how Al-Biruni's claimed to do it, after he measured a flat plane to get the height of the mountain.
Very good. Another thing you went to was the word experiment, which denotes real science. Explain how they misuse that.
Any word in the vernacular with a claim of sphere Earth attached could have any number of words like hypothesis, theory, experiment, independent and dependent variables. All those things can be claimed just to lend credence to the idea that what I'm suggesting or assuming has got scientific validity to it, when in fact what you're doing is begging the question, in this case of a sphere Earth, or of sphere-shaped air with atmospherics, and then you claim that your demonstration that's not going to be the atmosphere that you're actually going to be using when it's R-based is going to be your experiment. So if I say my experimental validity to claiming that Earth has sphere-shaped air at a rate of R that I'm not going to tell you about when I switch out the suitcases, is going to be based on this experiment where I infuse some gas into the air to show that the light changes its path when it travels through it to your eyes. Therefore, quote-unquote experiment. When in reality, an experiment is a natural phenomena that you want to know the cause of, so you vary something you assume causes it to see if it causes it or not. That's an experiment. They just don't have any for a globe Earth.
So these are words that we've heard for most of our lives, and of course, everyone's familiar with atmosphere, science, and most people know what refraction is, and they misuse it for their ball Earth. So then you also use another one, which is an angle measurement, tangent plane. How does that work on a curved surface?
It doesn't.
Why do they put it there?
Because they need to get an elevation angle from something, so they claim that they're getting it to something, to a sphere. Because once you're claiming that the straight line that you're required to take an angle measurement is to the sphere, you've got a justification for a sphere that isn't the surface in that instance. Then at some point you can bait and switch the actual horizon that you're going to look at through your sextant with the one I just claimed was the geometric physical limitation called Earth curve. Again, the one I relinquished when I refracted it.
And last but not least, the assumption from the beginning to the end that Earth is a sphere to begin with. Begging the question. Go over begging the question for the audience.
Assuming your outcome, taking the premise that the position you're fighting for, in this case my claim that the Earth is a sphere, assumed in the first instance and the first premise I lay down in any example. So if I suggest that if Earth is a sphere, then I will observe antipodal star rotation as I travel to the hemisphere that's below me. And when I travel to the hemisphere I assume below me, called the southern hemisphere, then I do observe star rotation, therefore Earth's a sphere. Well, the begging the question aspect of that, actually a formal logical fallacy known as affirming the consequent, but the first statement, if Earth is a sphere, assumes the premise that when I travel south, I'm antipode. It's already assumed in my claim. So it doesn't matter what I say as the proof of my assumption, because my assumption's already been made and everyone will accept it if they accept this argument. In many instances, it doesn't even necessarily have the example that follows the begging the question fallacy be true. If Earth's a sphere, I'll observe 15 degrees an hour deviation because Earth rotates underneath as a separate reference frame to cause footballs to drift, like Neil deGrasse Tyson examples. Meanwhile, if you actually check if that does actually happen, it doesn't. But they don't care, because they've still assumed Earth's a sphere, and they'd rather you argued about whether or not we see 15 degrees an hour than argue about whether or not they've assumed the Earth's a sphere and it turns, in any of their examples, with or without deflection that they've claimed.
You may have been right. I may have missed this one. Any evidence of axial rotation, Earth-based variety, which is on the subject you're talking about?
If Earth was a sphere, we'd have a 15 degrees an hour drift, that's Coriolis deflection, as claimed by the globe Earth. We do not observe and cannot demonstrate any natural effect of 15 degrees an hour drift, or any other drift for that matter. Therefore, Earth is not rotating. We'd example it with drift if it was, like they claim it has, but it doesn't.
Well, thank you,
wouldn't
Nathan.
expect to see any deviation.
All right,
Discord.
anyone in Discord want to come and...
They're saying they have no sound, so maybe I've got to refresh and leave. That's probably
All right,
why they've been so quiet.
Yeah, I think so. Let's
It'll
see
be
what
back.
happens.
Yeah, these things happen, technical issues.
Well, that's why I wanted that sound check earlier, but never heard from anybody.
Can you hear me in Discord?
Oh, he's back. He's back.
My bad. Obviously, you couldn't tell me verbally, but someone told me from the chat. And because I've got my new monitor that's massive, thank you, Brian.
That's all right, mate. You haven't heard a thing about the show.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You start again.
Any evidence of axial rotation of the Earth-based variety?
None whatsoever.
Any evidence of Earth curve?
Nope.
Any scientific evidence
Wait.
of gravity?
The
No,
first
get the gas
that you
pressure
didn't
out of
ask for
container. That's what
scientific
he's looking
evidence
for.
of Earth rotation.
I didn't ask for scientific evidence of Earth rotation because typically it's not asserted to be science. Occasionally people will fall into that trap with Earth rotation and claim that it's being proved with scientific validity. Foucault might be labelled science, but not necessarily. Gravity,
So they could just
always.
Gas
assert-
mover rotation lockstep.
Hold on, Arwin, can you not hear him?
So they could just assert what you did with me the other day playing the Globe Warrior, correct?
Depends who you get.
Without declaring that it's science.
It depends who you get with that subject, but with gravity it's always science as far as they're concerned. They're never going to claim it outside of those realms. They need it to be science because it has no validity, so typically they'll just naturally try and lend credence to it by giving it some scientific words like experiment. I'm glad
So
you're
like I
asking.
said,
The reason I'm
They
glad
could
you're
just
asking.
assert what you did to me the other day.
Yeah, I led you though. I was intentionally dropping those words in so you would attack them and then hinting at how you should attack them as I did it. But I'm glad you've asked because Spurs is always going to be the quintessential example of this because he was the first to do it and the first to pick up on it. It's a double-edged sword, right? For a number of reasons. The first is that flat earthers will be out there claiming science and you have to chop their heads off just as much as you chop off the globers when they do it if you don't want to be called a hypocrite. That's the first part, the first problem. The second part is that you don't always have the sword to wield, because if your opponent hasn't claimed science and you start asking them what their independent variable is, that's a foul. You can't suddenly demand scientific validity if no one's actually claimed that they've got science in the first place. If they've not used any of the words that I'm listening out for, so to speak, then you can't call them on where's their independent variable. But if they turn up with the Cavendish quote-unquote experiment, then you can be damn sure you can be getting them asked about what is their independent variable, etc.
Right.
Oh, back to Spurs, because that's what Spurs did. So, this is a long time ago, and Spurs does not do this now, but, I'm sorry, Spurs. Every time I apologise, you're just my example for this. He saw how wonderful it was. He watched QE absolutely annihilate people by having them make a claim. I won't be specific about what their claim might have been. And he asks them, QE that is, for their independent variable. And then a full-on pummeling follows and everyone cheers. So Spurs goes, well, I can do that. So then someone comes in and says, well, the sun comes up over the horizon. And Spurs says, well, what's your independent variable? And the person goes, well, why would I need an independent variable? I haven't claimed this is science. Well, you've got to have one. You've got a cause and effect relationship, right? But nothing's been established. Nobody's made a claim of science. Yeah, it might be a cause and effect relationship, but if no one's claiming that it's been validated by science, how are you going to attack them on their lack of science? You can't. So you've got to be careful how you wield it.
Yeah, Spurs was wielding that sword, boy.
You won't get anybody better than Spurs at this argument now. That's why I pick him, because in many ways it works to his advantage. If someone comes along and thinks, oh, there's Spurs chemo, he doesn't understand science. Yeah, watch how quickly he rips you a new one if you take that assumption.
I agree. I think Brian's trying to get our gas pressure out of container. I think he still doesn't realize we're contained. Right, Brian?
Sorry, what did you say?
I didn't hear you. What was that? Got the phone. Just got to go. Someone at the door.
And I think you're waiting for gas pressure out of container because you still don't understand that we are contained.
Throwing some shade your way, Brian. Is he right? Postman. Got to go. Important delivery. Toaster's burning. Got to come first. No? Brian? What's he talking about?
Well, he was talking some nonsense in the chat, so I wanted to give him the opportunity to explain.
Come on, Brian.
I'm
We're all friends here. Unless you're talking nonsense.
His tea's done. He had to go check the kettle.
Okay, it's going to be down to you, Neil. Fill us in. What's going on? Name and shame.
He obviously is not biting. I'm looking through his chat messages. I'll be back with it, though.
Okay, you let us know what the score is. So it's bank holiday over there, right? Today?
Unfortunately, yes. And I have barbecue.
Unfortunately, that means day off for everyone, doesn't it? Well, apart from people who work in retail.
Wait, what bank holiday is it?
Memorial Day for you guys. Memorial Day weekend,
Memorial
rather.
Day. It's
it
actually
Memorial
the
Day
kickoff
today?
of summer in the States.
Yeah, it's not bank holiday. It's a Memorial Day. It's a holiday to remember the veterans who have died.
Another line from that same episode, Marooned in Red Dwarf. So he's putting out a distress call because they're marooned on an ice moon or something. And he's putting out the distress call on the radio and he goes, Mayday, Mayday. Why do they call it Mayday? Why that particular bank holiday? Why not Shrove Tuesday or Ascension Sunday? And then he does the Mayday call again, but he changes it, presses the radio. Ascension Sunday, Ascension Sunday. He says it's help me. Mayday, help me. Anyway, I used to love Red Dwarf. Space is so much cooler than Flat Earth, don't you think? Nope, no one taking the bait. Is this thing on?
It's on, but we're trying to give Discord a chance to talk since they were shut out the first half of the show. Come on, Discord.
We had our own show while you were gone.
That's
our
nice.
own housekeeping.
You did your own housekeeping.
Oh, Brian, you're back.
I haven't been anywhere.
What was he chat
You
skanking
haven't
about?
answered the questions.
What were you chat skanking about? Come on, Brian.
You haven't
fill us in.
asked me a question.
I know. How could it be begging a question, right?
What?
Just ask the
Listen,
question, Neil. Just
You were
start
making
Yeah,
over.
go ahead and ask
You
the
were
question again,
making
Neil.
claims about. You were making claims about containment, and how unsure you are that we're contained. Can you just break that down for us?
Never said anything about that. What are you going on about?
Calling you a liar, Neil.
Uh-oh.
He's a liar.
He actually did call you a liar, Neil.
Okay. So
He's a
okay,
lawyer.
Liar, Arwin,
so-
don't get involved.
Okay. So then I'm happy to understand that you do realize we're contained. Okay, that's fine.
It's 20 minutes to go.
You got any proof for that?
Proof of containment? Yeah, gas
See
pressure.
what I'm saying?
Yes, gas pressure.
Which gas pressure?
Yes, we're breathing it. That's right.
Have you got proof for that?
Of gas pressure? Yes.
Do show me the 14.7 psi we're supposed to be living in.
Here it is.
Show you 14.7 psi.
Yeah. What they call gauge pressure. How
That's
could you
arbitrary.
possibly
Is
measure
it?
that?
I'm just trying to figure out in my mind what the issue is. Is your issue with the scale?
No, I'm talking about the alleged background pressure we are supposedly living in.
Do you understand that we have gas? Do you agree with that much?
Gases, yes.
Do you appreciate that when gases move, they hit stuff, including each other? Do you understand that?
Yes.
So that would be it pressing on something then?
Right.
So that's gas pressure then?
And that would be at 14.7.
So that would be a yes? So that would be a yes, would it? Would that be a yes?
Yes, that would be a yes.
So we have gas
Is that
pressure, okay.
14.7?
Okie dokie. So we've established, regardless of what scale we ascribe, gas moves around and presses on stuff, ergo we have gas pressure. Okay, yeah. If it didn't have anything to press on, it would all dissipate.
Agreed.
So we must be contained.
The 14.7, they say.
No, not the scale. Don't care what scale you put on it.
We don't care about the scale, right?
No, I do not care. I just know I'm breathing gas, and gas moves around at high speed in all directions, and when it hits something, it's hitting it. That's it pressing on it. Now, if it didn't have anything to press on, it would just carry on. Yeah?
Oh, there's momentarily, like a airplane's wing changes the pressure below it and above it. Only momentarily.
Pressure, yeah. So we definitely have pressure then.
Heated up above the wing to reduce the density, and below the wing it's at a greater density. So you get lift.
Pressure, but yes.
Momentarily you can change gas pressure.
So we definitely have gas pressure then.
We have gas, and yes, it is at a pressure depending on what it's doing.
Right, therefore, antecedent consequent relationship, we must have containment then. You can't have gas pressure without containment.
Momentarily, you can.
Okay. Do we momentarily breathe, or do we breathe all the time?
We breathe all the time. Well,
so we always have gas pressure. So there must be containment. Same thing. Antecedent consequent relationship.
Yes, and I've never denied that we have a density here, and the density gets less and less as we go higher. I've never denied that. What I do deny is what they're telling us. It is at 14.7 psi.
Okay, yeah, that's fine. Their scale is arbitrary, though, so it doesn't really matter.
Oh, right.
I mean, what
We
concerns
can
you
just
about their
make
scale?
that just look.
If I qualified it in Pascal or bar, would that make it better?
We measure in pascals.
But would that make it any
Sure.
different? It's just a different scale, isn't it?
No, it wouldn't make it any different. But as you said, that is just a scale.
Yeah. So where's the beef? Or what's the beef?
15 minutes remaining. 15 minutes to go.
Hold on.
Not by my watch.
Oh,
5 minutes to
I've
go
got to
here.
get in running. Hold on.
So what's the
beef is, hold on, the beef is I hear him on Gem Pandas saying I don't know we have containment. That's my issue, and that's it.
Okay. Well, he asked what your proof of containment was, and I said gas pressure. And now we're into the wrangle-dangle of the scale of gas pressure when we have got a concession that gas has pressure. So back to the antecedent consequent relationship.
My only argument is we all know and accept that high pressure always goes to low pressure. Is that correct?
Yes, called entropy.
Right. If our blood pressure is at 1.2 psi, about 120 millibars, how does that bleed out into 14.7 psi?
Being pumped.
It's being pumped at over 14.7 psi. Valves in your heart could not produce the pressure needed to expel your blood at over 14.7 psi.
Okay.
That's without looking at tear ducts.
And blood is like gas, right?
Blood is not like gas.
Oh, okay.
So a false equivalence.
But pressure is like pressure.
So gas pressure is like liquid pressure then, is it?
When we turbo or supercharge a car, we have to up the fuel injection pressure to whatever pressure we are putting into the plenum chamber.
Okay.
To keep the fuel flow the same as what it was when it was naturally aspirated.
Now this is how you do a false equivalence. Carry on.
If we boost it to half a bar, about 7 psi, we have to increase the pump pressure for the fuel by the same amount.
So what are we talking about? We're talking about the turbine blowing air on the engine or the liquid squirted in by the injectors? Because they're very different things.
We're talking about pressure equalization. If we don't up the pressure on the injectors, the engine will not reach the fueling ratio it needs because of the greater pressure of the air that's going in.
Okay.
So, taking that into account, how does our blood pump out into 14.7 psi if it is only at 1.2 psi?
But blood isn't the same
That's
as
all
gas
I
is.
just want
I've
the
just
answer
covered
for
this.
that.
I mean, it's nice that you've got a false
have a-
equivalence with both of the examples that you're using in false equivalence. In the example, i.e. turbocharged gas, that would be the air being blown in, and the liquid fuel that will be, turning into gas at some point so it can be combustible. But either way, this is still a false equivalence because blood and gas aren't going to behave the same way. They're different states.
Pressure difference is what I'm talking about.
Yeah, there's
I got a
differences
few
between a
questions
liquid.
for you, Brian.
Yeah, they're very different things, though. How gas behaves and how liquid behaves.
Yeah, you're assuming that gas pressure is going to behave the same way as liquid pressure. And that's what presents the false equivalence, Brian.
Explain, because as far as I understand it, pressure is pressure, whether it be a gas pressure or a liquid pressure.
All right, they're different things. They behave in different ways. So, for instance, if you've got a hydraulic system that you push the brakes with, that's the pressure that you put physically on the liquid, correct? What happens if gas gets in there? Does it still function the same, or does it mess everything up? Because they're different.
No, you can't compress air like you can.
Sorry, just answer my question. If you have a hydraulic braking system and you introduce a gas to it, does it still function with the same type of pressure, or does it stop working?
You've got 10 minutes left.
No.
10 minutes to go.
Why have you keep getting a 10-minute call? What's your timer for?
I don't know what that's for.
What's the timer for?
Racing. I'm on race room.
On what?
Let me quit that.
On what?
I've got a game running.
Oh, my bad. You can tell I'm not a gamer.
Oh my God, we're arguing with a gamer. That's the problem.
He's
Stop
not a
playing
YouTube
games,
gamer.
Brian.
No. While I might have knocked YouTube/Twitch gamers of our generation, no, it's being a gamer in general. Just, if you happen to want to bosh out a game of Call of Duty or whatever the kids play these days, more power to you at every age. Games aren't for anyone at any age. But the type of behaviour that kids exhibit when a 40-year-old or 50-year-old does it on a YouTube channel, that's very different. Just want to qualify that.
As I understand pressure.
You don't.
You didn't qualify my answer. You didn't answer what I just put to you, though. We're just moving on, it seems.
Sorry, what did
Which
you
is
say?
a fine example.
Hydraulic system.
Hydraulic system with air in it would not function.
But they're the same, right? Pressure's pressure, isn't it?
No.
So why are you arguing? Sorry, stop. Sorry, that's your argument.
Pressure is pressure. 25 psi.
Unless it's gas versus hydraulic. Unless it's not. Like this false equivalence isn't, Brian. So you've just conceded they're not the same. No, different. You've just conceded that.
Don't forget, I told you your show weren't on. Please.
Sorry, you've just conceded when comparing and contrasting in one system these two different states, liquid and gas, and how they behave differently. And one introduced to the other won't just continue to work as pressure. You've already said no, different. But you now want to go off on one telling us how they're the same again because it's pressure. Off to a good week, says Retro Bill. Thanks for the super chat.
Well, isn't liquid bonded solidly and gas isn't?
Is liquid bonded solidly? Sorry, are you having a laugh?
I didn't say that.
I think he's being absurd
that was
intentionally.
Me. I was asking a question.
Are you being absurd intentionally? Be honest.
Yes, he was.
I hope he was, because I'm about to round out if he wasn't.
I was asking a question.
So let's look at gases then.
No.
So let's equalise it by using gases. We live allegedly in 14.7 psi. What do you think you pass wind at?
I don't know.
It's been
Brian,
measured
are you
about
serious?
1.2 to 1.5 psi.
Brian, I think your problem is you're not liking the scale, but you didn't answer Nathan's question.
Now equalise your gases. How can you fart at 1.2 psi into 14.7 psi?
How do you know that it's 1.2, first of all?
People have measured it.
Who's measured it?
You haven't measured mine, baby.
I'm being serious. Forget about the crude nature of the example.
It has been done. People have
fine. Okay. I take it as read that what you say is true. I'll say that you've taken it. Somebody's got a describable measurement at 1.2, just for the example, if nothing else. Okay. When you go to fill up your tyres, the scale starts at 0. Is this scale like that scale?
This scale, the gauge was zeroed in atmospheric conditions.
So if it's zeroed at atmospheric pressure, then obviously a fart is above that then, isn't it? If you're measuring it at 1.2 above a zeroed scale at atmospheric pressure. Man, you obviously know the answer to this. It seems absurd that you'd even be asking if you know that.
Right. Now tell me...
Sorry, you didn't acknowledge what I combated your argument with. You've just conceded the scale gets zeroed.
That is suggesting that the passing of wind is greater than 14.7 psi.
Well, is it? You didn't answer. When we said, how did you get the measurement? What's the scale? Has it been zeroed when you give it a 1.2 measurement? Can you reference it and cite it so we can see how that scale was derived?
I don't believe our bodies can
Have you looked at how that scale was derived or not? You have to decide, just say yes or no. If you don't know, that's fine.
The pressure gauge was zeroed in atmospheric pressure.
So it's higher than atmospheric pressure then?
Yes.
So how does it overcome atmospheric pressure when it's higher than it? Are you joking?
No.
Yes. If it's at 1.2 and zeroed on a scale to atmospheric pressure, you're producing a gas pressure that's higher than that by 1.2.
Do you understand what you...
Do I understand that you're about to start barking at me for the third time without acknowledging a smegging word that I've overcome your argument with? Yeah, I know that you're going to start barking straight through me. Yeah, Brian, yeah, definitely.
You are suggesting...
I'm not suggesting. You've told me the scale has been zeroed. Therefore, 1.2 is above atmospheric pressure. Therefore, that is how it overcomes atmospheric pressure. Ergo, your question is stupid.
You are suggesting our lower bowels can contain...
No, you are suggesting it when you give us the scales that are zeroed at atmospheric pressure and give us a 1.2 value above that. That's what you're telling me. I'm not suggesting dick. You've given me the example. You've also explained how it overcomes atmospheric pressure because it's higher than it by 1.2 psi.
Yes, but it is...
Yes! So, can you sit down and shut up now, Brian?
I think they lied to us about everything.
So, nobody's lied to us about anything in terms of this example, Brian. Your example was stupid. Hello? So, meanwhile, we have gas pressure. Sometimes higher than atmospheric pressure in the case of a fart, by 1.2, so I've just found out. Fascinating. That scale was taken when zeroing that scale against atmospheric pressure, not that air takes the shape of a sphere. Meanwhile, to have gas pressing at all, it must be contained to have something to press on. So we definitely have containment. It's still an antecedent-consequent relationship, regardless of this nonsense about farts, Brian.
Bowels are a container.
And what I was trying to say a while ago was gases, whenever the gases hit each other, they bounce off. And whenever liquids are put together, hit each other, they just bond.
Maybe. Yeah, essentially you've got weak bonds in liquids, strong bonds in solids, no bonds in gases.
Right.
Any more for any more? We've extended the show. Shout out to Godzilla for the super chat. Thank you for the show, Nathan. Thank you for the super chat, Godzilla. Any more for any more? If not, I'm going to round out, or ask people to stay tuned, I should say. Nope. With that, I'm going to say a first huge, massive, enormous thank you to both Discord and G+ Pals for making today's live show possible. If you are watching this on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley Premiering streams, then stay tuned, as there will be an after show to follow. as I say, if you are watching this live, this is where we bid you farewell. So a huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of you who smashed the super chat, liked, commented, shared, subscribed, hit the thanks button, hit the PayPal link, and all that good stuff. I've been Nathan Oakley. Once again, stay tuned if you're watching on a premiering stream, and I'll see you all in the next video.
What a lovely day!
From the beginning.
Or is he doing the outro?
No, he said it was going to be a perfect false dichotomy, and it was. He called it from the beginning.
A good show. Good start to the week.
Yeah, that was really good. I wasn't expecting that at the end, but it was really good.
Yeah, thank you, Brian.
Hey, Nathan, you asked if anybody had a final statement, and then you just kept us muted.
Yeah,
You're
before I
cheating.
asked that, I closed the line before while the guy in Discord was finishing off his thoughts. Then I asked the question, not realising I already closed down your line. So yes, I did see you in the chat afterwards. So I was like, oh yeah, I did that. I did that first, didn't I? Then just closed Discord. Then yeah, sorry.
All right, fair enough.
I have to close it down for the outro. You can't not close the line for the outro, otherwise you'll be talking through the outro.
No, I get it.
Well, John and Adam just joined after the show. Where were you guys before?
They didn't
Yeah,
want face down, Baller Nathan. That's what that was.
Yeah, Baller Nathan is kind of scary. I mean, Baldwin is really, really friendly. You know?
Yeah, you did that to Adam the other day, too. He had something, and you just shut him down and ended the show.
It's got to end at some point. We were 10 minutes over as it was.
The whole thing with the gas pressure could have been settled very simple. Just a couple questions. He's missing one thing. He's conflating flux with equilibrium. If he has a barometer and knows how it works and knows how to use it, which is very simple, the simplest question is to ask him is it always the constant pressure? And the answer is no. It's in flux. The larger the container that you have, the more space that there is for things to fluctuate.
That's one way of doing it.
Level, right? It's going to be within a certain level because the overall dynamic system pressure situation is still in a very specific size container. So whatever fluctuation we're going to be exposed to on different levels, heights, it's going to be within a limit. Because if there wasn't a container, then it will lead to the most extreme version of gas expansion, which would be a vacuum practically, and there wouldn't be anything here. Right? There is gradation, there's fluctuations, but they're all within certain levels because there has to be a very specific finite amount of volume.
Right, but see, the point he's trying to get at is the pressure down here is equalized, but it's not, because it's 14 psi down here. If I go up 10,000 foot, it's not. So the equalization is going to be below 14 somewhere, but it's going to be over 1, because in order to have in order to have 2 psi in a container, you have to equalize at 1 first. and 1.1 and 1.2 and 1.3. You have to equalize. Then after it's equalized, it can go into flux.
Okay. Well, if you want to emulate a suspicion of what our realm is like with the gradient gas pressure situation, you're going to have a temperature influence to basically try to emulate it and try to get it right. I mean, potentially it could be possible to emulate a aquarium type situation where the gas pressure is kind of divided, very similar to what we have available and measurable within our realm.
Well, I have a test.
How much?
I love thinking up tests. All right. The questions I have to figure out to make the test is how big of a terrarium I have to use.
But it shouldn't matter too much in the size. It shouldn't technically matter. I mean, it's going to matter more for the amount of detail you're going to be shown. But effectively, it's all about the balance between the temperature influences in order to get the perfectly correlating gradient, right? That's what we really need to figure out.
Right, but here's the thing. With a small terrarium that I can put on my desk in my office, it's not going to fluctuate a whole lot or as dynamically. It's not going to go, far end one way, far end the other. I'm going to have to up the scale to be able to measure the fluctuations, because the smaller the scale you get, the more complicated a process it is to measure that minute change. But the bigger it is, the more pressure that you're using, you can measure the fluctuations easier because you have a wider range to measure.
Right, more detail, more content.
But the argument is, can we demonstrate gas pressure out of
higher
container?
resolution. Not what you're talking about is higher resolution because of higher scale, higher size of the setup.
Higher pressure, yes. So we're getting closer to scale of what we're actually dealing with. And now once that, say, biodome or terrarium, it's completely sealed. Let's say we put it up to 15 psi or heck, 7. We put a light in there. We've got it on a gear system. It goes around in a pattern inside that room. You got a fan or two blowing in there. Heck, you might even be able to turn it into a cloud chamber too, with the light moving and everything else going on. It's close to what we can get as the scale of what we have.
Wow.
You're going to see the change. You're going to see the flux. You're going to see the development of the dadgummit.
The dynamic system, right?
Can I question
the flow of the air?
You're talking about trying to simulate a dynamic system based on our realm setup, which is going to be very complicated to balance out, right? But yeah, worth a try.
That's what I'm saying.
What's the housekeeping question again?
It's a simple test. Do what?
What's the housekeeping question again?
I'm trying to design something to show somebody who's having issues with this topic so that they can see it in reality.
Right, natural gradation lore. It's very difficult to grasp for a lot of people. Right?
There's a test. There's a test that I actually thought up myself for this whole, we can live on a moving object thing. Great. Take 2 acres, carve out a circle all the way around, put it on a platform, on bearings, give it motors, and build a few houses and let people live there. You vary the speed at which the platform is moving in circles. Let's see how well they do day 1, day 7, day 37.
Wow, that sounds really trippy.
Yeah, but
Literally.
how you gonna compare it to the size of the Earth? That's what they're gonna say.
I get that, but see, here's the thing. There's already something out there that shows that a body in constant flux, not being stable and steady, you will die. The vestibular system in your ear will not be able to balance and get your bearings straight. Your brain will start shutting down, and so will your body.
Right.
This
Unless
is
you
a
come to
fact.
rest, right? We need to come to rest, be stationary in order to fully get all our regenerative functions. This is true. We need stillness.
Right. And it's a fact, and it comes from a torture device that was long ago disposed of.
Well, the thing is, the people that we argue with that don't get this have scaling issues. Why would you try to create a scale model for them? They won't get it.
I'm just trying to show Brian the flux, how the flux operates. If you have a biodome, you sealed the whole thing, you covered it in silly putty, right? It's completely sealed. Now, you pump it up to 8 psi. You have a light that's generating a certain amount of heat that's moving around the room. You have a couple of fans, a couple of clouds. We could add the cloud generator to this system that we built. There's a way to do it. So we could have fun with this. We could actually do something and then show someone, take them somewhere where they can literally read the gauges, look inside, see how it's doing, see where the fluctuation changes. You can put barometers in the entire room, everywhere, every inch, every 3 inches, on the floor, on the ceiling, and you can put cameras in the room shining right at the barometers to show you exactly the changes that are going on in a fluctuating system.
Sounds a bit expensive, but definitely interesting to try out. A good attempt at a simulation of the realm.
I mean, it's the bigger the container you have, the more fun you can have with checking all of these different variables. I can make an acrylic box, put a valve stem, pressure gauge, and then put 3 barometers inside: bottom, side, top. It's all going to read the same because the pressure's equalized. But what I'm wanting to see is the dynamics, because it's not always 14 psi where I'm at. Sometimes it goes down, sometimes it goes up.
Let's get the scale back at 0. New housekeeping question. Is gravity debunked by a fart?
No.
And
what's gravity?
I think it's debunked because gas, right? I can demonstrate it with a fart. Because gas doesn't go down.
Before we debunk it, what is it?
Well, it depends. If you're talking about Newtonian or the bending of length, width, depth, and time caused by the uneven distribution of mass.
Okay, you tell me which one are we debunking?
I need to put some headphones on.
Okay.
There's the philanthropic idea of the year. Yay 2022. 2-scale realm inside of a terrarium.
Are you actually engaged in building some of these things? Like, are you actually
I'm
building?
actually thinking about building
cool.
buying a large piece of property. I'm trying to figure out what I'm doing with all the space because I want
start small.
a lot of acreage.
Why need a property? Just start small and scale up, right? To find out more.
Bro, that's the thing. We have started small already. We've got them as big as drums that you can literally stand in.
I'm talking about
I need something bigger.
I'm talking about what you're
I'm talking about society as a whole. I have the biggest container I have is my compressor. I haven't even messed with it, but I've made other stuff in the past, and other people, society as a whole, have tested larger apparatus, larger containers for certain things like this. I'm wanting something that's actually more than what we've done. Because I remember moving light, moving heat. It's really difficult in a cylinder to mimic something that isn't a cylinder.
Can I ask you a question? What is your end purpose for all this if you go through it and all the expense? What do you want to prove at the end?
Question is why hasn't somebody already done it?
No. Well, why do you want to do it, and what do you perceive the outcome will prove? I mean, what are you after if you do all this?
It's just to show people like Brian, anybody that's having issues with it, to actually look at a dynamic system in flux, how the changes are, where they're at, what's causing
but
them.
the changes. Hold on,
look,
the
it's perfectly
changes.
reasonable.
The changes are irrelevant.
You're having issues with dynamic flux. Contact the dynamic flux hotline on 1-800 dynamic flux. Callers are standing by.
They're called flux workers.
Listen, all of that stuff is irrelevant. The question is, can you have gas pressure without containment? End the story. All that other shit you can throw out the window.
No, but the guy just wants to understand the dynamic system, right? Through emulation. That's a worthwhile pursuit.
As one of the dragons, I'm still in here. Look, I want to turn this into Fluxland. I'm still in. Tell me more.
I'm down. I am down for it. Fluxland is a great name. I just might copyright that.
What's your
I'll give you
profitability
credit.
projections?
I'll give you credit.
I mean, have you got something set up already? Is it already
It's
churning
not
a
to
profit?
try and prove anything. It's to show somebody, because what you're saying, the way you're saying it, yes, it's true. But that's not how everybody in the world learns, bro. Everybody learns slightly differently than everyone else.
You know, it'd be a lot cheaper. A rack. Trust me, Brian would learn a lot quicker if you had him on a rack.
Agreed.
Yeah, but that's just, it's unusual and quite cruel.
I mean, there are other less cruel and cheaper thumb screws. There you go.
But Brian learned his own lesson when he agreed with you.
Nobody's arguing with me. Thumb screws are definitely cheaper and less cruel.
So is electricity, but what's your point?
No, that's really expensive here now.
Oh no, it's cheap. I can go down to the junkyard, get an alternator and a fan blade and hook it up to a pole.
Lucky old you.
Fucking dark. Has anybody ever told you that?
Got license.
Hang on. Electricity is the most current method.
You know, I once made an electric chair for a mouse.
Look, I'm not going to pass up a good e-begging opportunity. The bills here have doubled. Electricity in Europe has gone up absolutely astonishingly huge amounts. The electricity bill has gone up vastly. And I know this in terms of the amount of... I better not say that about my wife's work and what she does. People moan, let's just put it that way, right? People are moaning, and rightly so, because electricity is so expensive at the moment. I shouldn't be smiling. It's one of those things I accept, and I'm pretty frivolous with electricity. But it might reach a point where I have to be a bit more careful. I mean, I already run a bill that's bigger than most people that have a mansion, and I'm in a flat.
Right. Well, the electricity companies can't help it, right? They're just trying to manage like the clients and all that and the routes, but they're just being subjected to this geopolitical situation where they just can't get the stuff that they normally provide for the same price. So it's not their fault.
Sure, but by the same token, I spent about 6 hours with my graphics card running at full tilt, pulling about 200 watts just for the card, just so I could make the fans quiet. You know what I mean? So I'm not exactly careful with electricity. Should be more careful, really, but God damn it, the fans annoy me.
We could get into that, but on a live stream, I don't know. I would love to go over that stuff privately.
Or undervolting and...
Because there's a lot of information to that.
Yeah, not half. Up until recently, when I just got this new graphics card, my understanding was to overvolt things and overclock them and so on and so forth. However, I've recently learned that you can do something almost the same, but considerably different, which is to say, get the same performance, try and get the clock speed as high as possible versus the lowest possible voltage. And I watched the guy do it, and I was like, but you're basically getting an overclock and a higher level of performance out of this piece of equipment whilst running it at a lower heat, lower voltage, lower stress. I was amazed. I had no idea people were doing stuff like that. Very cool.
He's finding the equilibrium. This is cool stuff that's been going on.
Finding the balance. Exactly.
Okay, so I can take the transformer out of the back of the TV, and I can change it out for a DC unit, right? And I can run the TV exactly the same at 1080p. Running on DC, it's probably going to pull like 18 volts. But all I need to do is change the signal that's being sent in to the board. That's it.
That's all a transformer does.
I talked to a friend about this a while back, and he's like, yeah, the best thing you can do is convert your electronic device over to DC and make sure you don't screw up converting it.
That's all a power supply does, isn't it?
Right. But you're talking about taking out a transformer that fluctuates AC and going over to direct current. So only what needs to be used is going to be used.
So you're saying you don't start with AC?
No, you do from the wall, but you're converting the electronics inside the television itself over to DC.
I thought they were all DC anyway. My monitor now has a little power supply that's an external brick, just like your laptop would use. So it just is anyway, isn't it?
I don't think so.
I don't know.
How would electric wiring systems work if it was all just DC?
They have to be DC. Most things
could it work?
Most of your heat in your computer is lost because of resistance, because you're pushing more power through the system than what it actually needs to do the operation. That's AC. DC, it's going to sip on that. And it's going to use exactly what it needs, and you can tweak your controls in DC of how much juice you want to use. I'm sure you can do it in AC, but it sounds like it's a bigger pain in the butt to do it in AC than it is to just go from AC back to DC inside the unit yourself.
It's also very dangerous.
That doesn't address what they asked.
It's also very dangerous, though.
Well, I mean, depending on what you're doing, it can be.
Well, it is.
I mean, I'm not trying to tell people to do this to their giant AC unit outside or in their... No. A small 32-inch TV ain't going to kill you.
Neither of you are addressing my question.
What's your question, Arwin?
What if you bypassed the AC entirely and did everything on DC? What would be the problem to prevent using that?
It wouldn't be. You're just doing a conversion at a different stage, that's all.
No.
Yeah, you'd have to literally unplug from the grid.
Just AC. Could the electric wiring be just AC being bypassed and just using DC? Or would there be
He's saying, could you use the same wires if you detach from the AC circuit? Yes.
So the entire electric system could be converted.
Wires are wires.
Huh.
Yeah, look. You
what
can
would
go to your
happen? What would
box in your house and unplug the line, all right? And you can hook up a battery. And you can set a module to regulate how much is going through the lines and make your whole house DC that way. But most of your electronics are designed to work on AC. So you're going to still have to change probably a couple of things inside certain electronics to get them to work.
But when you're talking about your whole house, I mean, originally when there was the whole AC-DC battle, didn't they electrocute an elephant to make this point? Or so the story goes.
Yeah, but you're not running more than 24 volts in any specific spot unless you're running like equipment, like drill presses and stuff. You're using 36, 57, 102. Sure, but that's what that requires. But 102 volts is still not enough. They shocked the elephant with like 10,000.
Fair enough.
Yeah, they definitely overdid it just to make a political point, right?
Well,
That's what the robber barons did.
Right. They used more DC current, and we're talking thousands, tens, hundreds of thousands to do what they did. 100 volts is just going to shock you. It's not going to kill you. 10,000 can stop that. That can kill you. 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, anything going up, all of that can kill you.
1.21 gigawatts.
It doesn't kill everybody. That's why the police went from 50,000 down to like 20 or 30. So they stopped killing people. But you can still do it if you keep your finger on the trigger. I watched them do it. It's crazy.
Fair enough. Very interesting stuff.
Dude's down.
Do you guys actually?
DC is safe.
Do you guys actually tusk the science of electrocuting an elephant?
Yeah, they called it science back then too.
My memory's
It's
terrible
just
when it comes to
fear
elephants.
porn advertisement, I'm afraid.
Your fire alarm systems run on DC. Your entry access runs on DC. The whole system is low voltage.
Like
The board, the switches, the signals, everything is all DC.
I'm all ears.
Stuff works like a dream.
Yeah, but my question remains, why then, if AC is dangerous and DC isn't, why not just universally
don't say
converge?
that. What do you mean AC isn't? AC isn't dangerous. You have a laugh.
Resistance, the only reason you have a bill is because of resistance. If you were to rewire your whole house and keep it AC and just make the line, the next gauge bigger, you would have less resistance. Everything would be the same, except for your electric bill. That would diminish.
Maybe.
DC doesn't need resistance to work. AC, well, at least the measuring tool does. The measuring tool itself needs resistance to measure. The mechanical boxes that they used to have, still resistance. The only reason that worked was because of the resistance.
Dude, I'm all for it, man. This sounds really useful. So let's convert to a DC universe.
Do it now.
Nobody was talking about superheroes, though, Arwin. So that pun just was wasted.
I know, I'm just bridging words.
I think the whole discussion was. I think the whole discussion was irrelevant.
No, but seriously, look, if there's such an advantage in using DC electrics, then why not try to get the system to alter the way electrics are applied? I mean, it's
Because
It
it's
will be boom.
bad for business. What part of that
Well,
are you not
screw
saying?
business. There is electric
Yeah,
shortage. We
Okay,
might be able to convince them right now.
And you may end up dead.
Then, yeah, that's what I'm saying. If you want to make changes in your lifestyle, do it. But there's a path that you have to walk. There are steps you have to take to do it correctly.
If
To
anyone else
not have
tired of
any issues with anybody.
Thanks for the
There's some
elephant.
terms you're going to have to learn.
Elephant made of
Why
tires.
couldn't a local
Thank you.
town, a mayor or something, be convinced to basically convert his entire town to DC electrics?
Dude, didn't we start with DC electricity, telegraph wires,
Not
and all of
answering the
that? Wasn't that all?
question.
Oh,
I think you're thinking of monorail,
did.
and it was The Simpsons.
Why is this argument getting so charged up?
Wow. I'm actually trying to take something serious and everybody's just joking around now.
They're not going to change. It's bad for business. And the business of business is making money. And they're not going to make money letting you get charged for only what you're using at a low voltage cost, because the systems to monitor that are more expensive and more complex.
What would they charge you with? Assault and battery?
Oh, I really want to make it if people could prevent themselves from rumpusing while they do it, right? So what if there is an energy crisis? Well, then there's going to be potentially communities that are going to crumble under that. There might be whatever, a politician or something that just like, hey, but I don't want this community to crumble. I'm going to take that risk and actually transform their electric system like this and give just that nudge to keep them afloat, right? Why not? These are times of energy crisis.
People are doing it already. People are off grid with solar panels, batteries, and everything is DC. You can get my trailer as a DC refrigerator. You can
That's
do
correct.
I don't know about that.
What's that?
Well, your unit's probably got a phase lock generator in there too, which is really good. Those are great for building a windmill.
All right. I learned something new today. Thank you very much for that. I had no idea.
I found something out. Isn't it funny how we're getting charged for electricity?
Yeah. I just find Nathan Oakley's channel a great outlet for all information.
What's the anti to charge, though? What's the anti to charge?
Free.
Discharge.
But didn't Tesla try this and he turned up dead?
You do know DC loses its current over a run, don't you?
Did you come up with this idea on your own?
Wow.
We go from the fart to the runs now.
That was the best pun so far.
And discharge.
Well,
Did you
I've
come up
had
with this
some
on your
farts
own?
turn into runs.
Yeah, it was a good one, Nathan.
Horrible.
I'm trying to come up with a snuffleupagus pun. Wait 1 second.
Discharge fit everything.
If you look at DC cable, it's multi-stranded because it travels on the outside of a strand. AC is a single strand cable. All your housing is a single strand cable because it travels internally through the wire.
Who's told you it travels on the outside? That's called skin effect.
Electrician that rewired my house.
Said
So I asked
electricity
him,
travels on the
why
outside of the
did
cable, did he?
Why the DC cables are just a single strand? Where everything we use on a car is multi-stranded. He explained it to me that way.
High voltages likes. So just look at Ohm's law. Do you know Ohm's law?
I don't.
Have a look at you home cabling, which is AC, and then have a look at any DC cabling, is multi-stranded. For that very purpose. Hey, you've learned something today.
Yeah, remind me.
Electrified.
Remind me to touch the wire instead of the outer coating from now on.
Don't go stick a fork in it.
Who was talking about making a rotating platform? I was racing at the time.
That was Cuddles. That was me. But this whole electricity thing is odd because the obfuscation is silly. In electricity, you have charge, you have no charge, or you have discharge. Discharge also is equal to no charge because once the charge is gone, there isn't a charge.
And it's free.
No, you're just being pedantic. Jesus Christ.
King of Kings and Lord of Lords. Thank you for mentioning his name.
If you discharge it, you still use the charge. You're talking about free. There is no free, but what I'm suggesting gets into a deeper conversation we're not going to have here.
About your rotating platform.
You're about a conversation and a half behind, Brian.
No, but I was racing.
It's all good. Look, the simple thing is the moving platform. It's a test to see if people can actually live on a moving object. 2 acres, big circle, build a platform, make it rotate, build houses on it, have people move into these houses. Adults.
You know, people do live on
only.
boats.
Just go to a carnival, get on a ride.
It's not the same thing, dude. False equivalence. Jesus.
Really? Yeah. He's calling on the Lord.
Rotating ball, rotating platform. Rotating ball, rotating platform. Boat, where's the rotating? False equivalence.
Can I say something?
Well, yeah,
I don't know whether you would physically build a rotating platform that could support the weight of homes, albeit the way I thought about it was a chainsaw and a frozen lake and a length of string half the distance you need the circumference to be, the diameter to be, and cut out a circle in a frozen lake. A outboard motor mounted towards the edge of the circle would give you your rotating platform supported by the water.
Yeah, but look, we're trying. The whole point of my test is one, speed. There's the control. We're controlling the speed of the platform. Nobody said good tests were cheap, bro.
Scientific.
There are some
scientific tests,
but good
I don't know.
tests to get good info.
Anthony did a scientific experiment with an egg. I don't think it cost him much.
I had controls and test. This sounds a bit like science.
Yes, it does.
It's getting there. It's getting there. But that's the thing. We're not to the phenomenon. We're testing a story that alleges a phenomenon that nobody can take me anywhere or any specific time. They can't even give me a location where I can experience it. So
well,
that's
the end of the argument. Then
you'd
have to go into their assumption. You know, beyond them their assumption that there's a phenomenon that doesn't happen. Once you show it doesn't happen, that's
rubbing
kind of
it
the end
in
of the
is
road.
Rubbing it in is fun, though.
So Earth-based Coriolis doesn't exist, but you're going to spend a lot of money to prove it doesn't exist.
No. You get people that are all for this to sign up to live on the platform in the houses. All right? We do a test for a period of time, have 6 months, 3 months off for them to equalize back out, and then go back in for round 2, 10 miles an hour platform movement. See if they can make it 4 days. Because I know they're not going to make it up to 30 or 100. That is not going to happen at all because they ain't going to make it in an hour. They'll be dead.
With that, I'm going to say another huge, massive, enormous thank you to both Discord and G+ panels for making today's after show possible. And, of course, a massive thank you to all of you in either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley Premiering streams, hopefully smashing the super chat, liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing, hitting the thanks button, and all that good stuff. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I will see you all in the next video.